Thank you, Council. I, again, would like to reiterate to Mark Hillman and various gentlemen and ladies that are on the commission how hard they've worked, and this council over the past several months. We've had a healthy exchange, there's no question about that, and I think that is a positive impact on democracy when one has that exchange. I would like to point out that some of you may be aware that I'm a retired pastor, and one of the things that we should be cognizant of is we are all brothers and sisters, regardless of whether we work at a bank, a church, on a crop farm, a sod farm, or in the chicken industry. I personally really enjoy chicken. I want you to know that. And in that connection, I would like to allude to the issue that came up several months ago. Council mentioned the Right to Farm Act. And in that context, I would just suggest that we take a deeper breath on that and reflect on that. It would seem to me that if individuals who own property of some mass should elect to sell off a portion of that property for the use of funds for increasing their productivity or improving their financial position, and homes are built in that area by developers, then I do not think it's appropriate that that act be held up as we have the right, as under that act, to come up against homeowners in their benefits and privileges as homeowners, and i.e., they have as much right as the farm community. And I think we can work together to do that. And in that context, I would allude to one of the gentlemen, an esteemed real estate gentleman in this room right now. Ed Lee sent me an email within the last week indicating that property values are already on the decline, 8 to 13%, because of what we're talking about tonight. That's a serious consideration that everyone in here should be cognizant of. That was just in July. I would like to hurry along and say that I believe this legislation that's before us has some very positive points and some that could use a little refining. I also recognize that what is listed in this legislation or ordinance does reflect very similar ordinances that have been put in place by neighboring counties. Some of the elements that are in it are reflective of what DPI's position was initially. And so let us recognize that and move forward in that regard. I'm not criticizing, I'm just stating a fact. There's a situation I'd like you to be aware of. We have friends, Lisa and Dr. Joe Israello, and they live in Somerset. You may be aware, maybe not, but they are near one of these large CAFO operations that we refer to. They've been the owners of that property from the 1700s, so they are local folks. They're Eastern Shore folk. Because of what has transpired next door to them, they're inundated with flies, not to mention if the wind shifts from a certain direction, that is an issue. Thank you. In that connection, there was recently an event that I'm sure you've read about or heard about, and that was simply this, that there was a horrendous rainstorm which resulted in a flooding. The ponds couldn't maintain or contain, I should say, the abundance of water, and that led to a flooding of fields and roads. If you would like to view that, I would be glad to show it to you. I have it on my laptop. Please see me afterward. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you,
And everyone that joined us, thank you for joining us. I have several concerns regarding the possibility of loopholes inside the proposed regulations. One, the proposed ordinance exempts new poultry houses from the increased setbacks if they submit a complete stormwater management application prior to the effective date of the ordinance, which brings me to ask, how many houses are in the pipeline that would be exempted from this provision? The second, the proposed ordinance allows an existing poultry houses or poultry house complex to be replaced and or enlarged by 25% of the existing house or 25% of the complex footprint, making said new regulations exempt, moving backwards to the old 100-foot setback rule. Which also brings me to the next question. Has the county mapped out the consequences if every existing poultry operation took advantage of this loophole? We are concerned that this provision renders the rest of the ordinance meaningless, since MDE's database shows more than 100 poultry operations, mostly CAFOs, in Wicomico County that could potentially expand their footprint. After reviewing Accomack County's similar regulations, I want to bring forward the proposal of a few more adjustments and things to consider. Density. Nowhere does the regulation discuss or regulate density of poultry operations. There should be a minimum of 8 acres per poultry house to set a maximum of animal units per house. Regulations should also consider the use of multiple persons, dividing the massive operation into 2, thus allowing more houses to be built in a designated area. Number 2, there should also be a notice of intent for all permits onto the county's website, the planning and zoning site, and a notice in local papers. Posting of permits on the physical site should also be adequately noticeable by all residents, neighbors, community dwellings, and schools. We also ask you to input input into the regulation that all MDE permits must be approved before construction on the land is started for adequate and responsible best management practices. The minimum setbacks as is are entirely inadequate and do not address the possibility of density and multiple facilities in a given area. The use of an industry's good neighbor relations policy is a simple way to increase setbacks in a way that was beneficial to the industry and not the neighbors themselves. I also want to address the lack of transparency from the council regarding the health impact assessment. At no given time were the stakeholders allowed to give their input on the matter, even though the HIA clearly states that we did so. Community members should know what is happening throughout the process and should be invited to give input on the scope and the questions. Not only did the council fail to notify the public that the study was being done, but we had to find out on social media that it was being used in Cecil County regarding their new zoning regulations. The research questions developed were narrow and restricted and prevent a full and appropriate evaluation of the data and research. As a result, studies and evidence highly relevant to the community health were excluded. And finally, I want to expand on the fact that the County Council and the Health Department have full capacity to convene as a county health board and can adopt a health ordinance on behalf of the Maryland Constitution, Article 11A, and is given broad legislative powers regarding public health through the local government article, Section 10.206 of the local government article, provides that the county council of a charter county may pass an ordinance that, and I quote, may aid in maintaining the peace, good government, health, and welfare of the county. The Board of Health powers is provided in the Health General article, which can be found in Health General 3-202 Section D, and I quote, each county Board of Health may adopt and enforce rules and regulations on any nuisance of cause of disease in the county. Thank you for your time, and please consider amending this. I will be emailing this.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I have a few notes here to keep me on track so I don't wander off. I'm speaking on behalf of the Circle of Leaders, which is a group of people who are concerned with many things that happen in several counties. The concern that I'm going to speak to have to do with the health impact of having CAFOs in the county, specifically Wicomico County. My concern with the proposed Emergency Act is that it does not address the health concerns. It primarily addressed zoning concerns. And zoning concerns do not, in fact, take into consideration, as far as I can tell from having read the bill some time ago, the effect of CAFOs on residents. The impact of CAFOs on residents, especially children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with immune deficiencies can be great. And immune deficiencies include people receiving cancer chemotherapy, other chemotherapy, or people who may have AIDS. And this is based on the fact that microorganisms can be included as hazards. Exposure to harmful microorganisms, substances, toxins, whatever we want to call them, can be a reality. Manure especially. And with manure, and let me preface this by saying, I've been in the health profession, I'm a registered nurse for many years, more than I'd like to tell you. With manure, there's concern for GI disturbances, and there's a whole list of microorganisms, pathogenic, harmful bacteria, Salmonella, E. coli, that we've heard about in fruits and vegetables, hamburger, and with some of its devastating effects. With the GI disturbances, and many times people call it the stomach flu. They're not sure. They don't link it to it. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, increased gas, cramping, abdominal cramping. It also can affect people so they have joint and muscle aches and pains. People can have fever. And I remember growing up, maybe eating something bad and just calling it the stomach flu. So many people aren't even aware that they may have had contaminated food. Air pollutants is another concern of mine. And this especially affects the respiratory system. And there are many people here on this Eastern Shore that already have chronic bronchitis, asthma. When I moved here, the first 6 months I was here, I had a cough. I was coughing up things. I thought I had developed tuberculosis. Since I've been here, almost 30 years, I now have an inhaler that I have to use because of reactive airway disease. The ammonia that comes out of manure can irritate the respiratory tract. People can wind up with chronic bronchitis, decreased lung functioning, especially this is important to children, asthma. The hydrogen sulfide, that rotten A smell that you get, also can affect the moist mucous membranes in your eyes, in your respiratory tract, in your nose, and be very irritating to people. The particulate matter, a small matter, that can be emanated from some of the emissions. And I'm not an expert in chickens, believe me, so I may use the terms inappropriately. But this particulate matter can come from food, from bedding, from dry manure, and also from poultry feathers. People can wind up again with respiratory problems, such as chronic bronchitis, etc. So although there are many things like odors and flies that also can come from the chicken factories, that's a problem. The current proposal addresses zoning issues, but does not address health issues. It's a good effort, and I assume it was done in good faith, but it falls far short of what we need to address health. So my proposal is that the County Council and Executive convene as a Board of Health and further this process by developing a health ordinance and not just zoning.
Thank you, Ms. Mattis. Eddie Johnson.
Eddie Johnson, Somerset County. I have 2 articles I'd like to share with you. Barnyard dust offers a clue to stopping asthma in children. And I only made 1 copy. Your rules and regulations didn't tell me I needed 10 until I got here.
We can make copies.
I think you can handle copies, yeah. All right, the other is a health impact assessment from your own Wicomico County Health Department. The executive summary on page 4 A large volume of research and case studies have supported potential legislative negative effects of CAFOs on neighboring communities. However, this generalization cannot be projected across all CAFO types, since few studies have provided data relevant to poultry CAFOs. In conclusion, there is little direct evidence that the proposed project will affect the public health of the environment in the community. So this is from your own health department. If you really, really don't like the way a property is zoned, you always have the option to buy it. And you will find the only way you're going to pay for it is either marijuana or chickens.
What?
President County, council members, I think you've seen my face a few times. But I've given you a copy of there, my written comments. And I'm speaking for myself. Some of you may have seen these comments before because I submitted them to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to start by saying that I commend the council and the County Planning and Zoning Office for the work that they conducted over the last 10 months, drafting the proposed bill and listening to the community. Much work went into the council meetings, public forums, and the town hall meeting. The bill, as I read it, establishes setback distances and special county growth requirements for the new poultry houses. It has no impact on existing MDE permitted poultry operations. It is my understanding that health-related issues and paleo-channel contamination potential, two critical issues, are not addressed in the draft bill. These issues will require more work and future resolution. I speak to you today because I'm concerned the central problem remains unsolved. The community's primary concern grew from two proposed poultry operations that will not be required to comply with the new zoning requirements, and indeed would likely not have been allowed without special exception under the new zoning requirements. I think we all are familiar with the two proposed poultry operations I referred to, one on West Road, Naylor Mill Corner, and the other one on the Lebanon Shield, Rock Walker Bridge corner. Neither of these poultry operations have begun construction. No dirt has been moved. One farm has its operation permit initially issued, and the other seems to be on hold or in redesign status. I have attached a slight map, a small map if you want to refer to it. I request that the county council and the poultry companies involved, which is Purdue Farms and Tyson Foods, work out a means for the two yet-to-be-built poultry farms inside the Metro Core boundary to be relocated to a different site in the county. I believe until a resolution to this original problem is found for our communities, then our communities will remain divided, and strong opposition to these poultry operations will continue for many years to come, regardless of the passage of this bill. And I'd like to finish by saying, I looked at the drawings for the proposed CAFO on Naylor Mill Road. There will be 2 million chickens grown in 10 houses if it goes forward. That is the largest chicken growing facility in this county. It will be if it goes forward. I can't predict the future. But the draft zoning rules you've proposed here tonight will not apply to the largest CAFO in our county. It just doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Charles Denton. He just spoke, Mr. Kramer. I'm sorry, Bob James.
I don't need to speak right now. Thank you. Decline.
Linda or Lida Whittington.
My name is Lyle Whittington. I'm from Willards. I have one statement I'd like to present to the council, and that is, for health reasons, I ask that the vegetative buffer requirements be made retroactive to apply at least to all CAFOs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew Mitchell. Could you repeat that, Mr. Kramer? Andrew Mitchell.
So here we are today. I'm expressing my concern about this proposed project. So we are worried about not only for the environment, also for the community in the neighborhood. We have a Islamic center there, and we have a lot of children coming there every week. And we are concerned about their safety and health. Some of the members here, fellow members, they expressed that there is no danger in the chicken industry, or they've been owned the chicken industry for a long time. I would say, being in this profession, as a pharmacist, I see every day a lot of people from the chicken industry suffering from different kind of allergies and other health issues like asthma and other diseases. So it's not totally safe, like some people mentioned, that everybody is different, they have a different level of immunity, but overall I have seen a lot of people suffering from different sicknesses. So I would oppose this proposed settlement, so I will request the council to please reject this settlement. Thank you so much.
Mary Ashante.
Good evening, President Cannon, members of the County Council, and all those assembled. Again, my name is Mary Ashante, and I'm President of Wicomico County NAACP. Thank you for this scheduled session. The health impact assessment, which we call HIA, is based on Yellow Mill Road permitted CAFOs project. Our concerns and comments, the HIA was done by Wicomico County Health Department in April 2016. It indicates that stakeholders were involved in discussion with the health department and the concerns of the stakeholders were addressed. The NAACP was not made aware of this assessment, and the health impact assessment gives no indication that the African American community needs were addressed. According to the health impact assessment, there are over 80% of African Americans living in the surrounding area of the proposed CAFOs on Yellow Mill Road. So how will the proposed legislation protect the community? Also, since it appears that the County Council relied on the health impact assessment, we have the following concern. A health impact assessment process should be transparent and inclusive. The community members should know it is happening throughout the process. That did not happen here. This health impact assessment made it sound like the groups concerned about the massive CAFOs were consulted when they were not. The recommendations do not accurately reflect or address the review and findings of the assessment. The health impact assessment recommendations should align more closely with the community health concerns and potential public health impacts, but this is not possible based on the narrow scope of the health impact assessment. Next, Mr. Gary Kelman from Maryland Department of Environment said that air emissions weren't covered by the state's Clean Water Act permits, even though a recent study found that ammonia emissions from farms is a growing source of water pollution. The study published May 2009 in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences found that by 2010 to 2012, ammonia was the primary source of nitrogen falling to the ground at 69% of the monitoring sites nationwide. Therefore, we recommend that a moratorium be passed until protective health ordinance is passed. The county council should convene as the Board of Health for the county, which gives it even broader authority to protect. I was looking for your son. Therefore, we recommend that a moratorium be passed until protected public health ordinance is passed. The county council should convene as the Board of Health for the county, which gives it even broader authority to protect public health than is granted through its zoning powers. I am submitting this public health powers memo as part of my testimony on this point. A public health ordinance should address a number of things not covered by the proposed zoning ordinance, including 1, a requirement that an agricultural operation obtain a health permit from the local government that has to be renewed every 5 years and that allows for inspections. A requirement that the agricultural operation control airborne pathogens and other air emissions. Spacing or density requirements to address the cumulative adverse health impacts that come from multiple operations in close proximity to each other. Fees that the agricultural operation must pay to the health department to cover the cost of inspection. Enforcement provisions, which include penalties for violating the order. And lastly, we agree with one of the previous speakers who recommend relocating the CAFO projects on Nilla Mill Road from Nilla Mill Road and Lavender Shield Rock Market area.
Margaret Barnes. Balance. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I don't have anything written down because I literally just got home at 3:30 in the morning from a long trip, so I hope that's okay. I would like to tell you that I was at the meeting today with the health board, along with Gabby Camarada and Mary Ashanti. I concur with what they said. We did not know about the health impact assessment. We had no input with that. I'll raise this up. Okay, got it. What we learned, or rather, one of the things I learned today was that apparently, as you know, there is an asthma epidemic in this area. I think it's in the health assessment, something like 69% emergency visits, 69% over the Maryland average for asthma. Someone if you read the health assessment, it's in there. The numbers are staggering. Also, I believe 5% more children with asthma than the national average, which is actually quite high. What I learned today, though, is that apparently there was a coordinator for asthma in the health board who dealt with families with asthma. They took statistics, they did all that. Well, 2 years ago, the funding got cut. I'm really curious why in a place where asthma is one of the highest in the entire state, why this county cut funding for a position that was clearly warranted. It seems very irregular that you would cut a position in the health department for an issue as dire as the situation here in Wicomico County is with asthma. So apparently that position has never been refilled. I don't know how much money it took to fund that position, but perhaps there can be money found in the county budget for that. Also, that was one of the big ones. And also, of course, that there's no air monitor whatsoever on the Lower Eastern Shore. This is very disturbing to me because how is anyone in here supposed to know if the air quality is good or bad on a given day if our air quality here is defaulting to Easton, which is, you know, an hour away, and of course doesn't have nearly the concentration of CAFOs as we do here in Wicomico, Somerset. So, and I have read the ambient air monitor system report for 2017. We are required to have an air monitor on the Lower Eastern Shore, according to this report. There is not. I don't see how the county council prudently can allow for a CAFO development here without having any idea how much ammonia is in our air, how much particulate matter, ozone, carbon dioxide. You guys are agreeing to things, you know, you're walking into this blindly without having any reference point whatsoever, which I find to be very reckless. Now, I know that there are farmers here who will tell you, well, I'm healthy as a horse, so, you know, so it should be fine, you know, as if that's some sort of, you know, scientifically, you know, peer-reviewed journal. Well, it's not. And besides which, if you're a CAFO owner and you're going into your chicken house, you're supposed to get up in your hazmat suit with your big mask on so that you don't get pathogens and all this stuff. So, I mean, just the fact that you have to go into your chicken house wearing a hazmat suit is an indication that it's probably not very healthy for you. So, and, you know, we're also dealing with some new things happening in the world, such as, let me just finish this one thought. We're dealing with things like Zika virus, which, if you read the Department of Agriculture report, it's telling people, residents, how to no standing water, don't have any standing water. Well, what are CAFO owners doing about their standing water of the stormwater runoff? It's a breeding ground for Zika. God only knows what else. Thank you.
Thanks. Excuse me, Mr. King.
Ernest Bond.
Well, I'm going to be very short. In fact, I didn't even know I had signed up. But I'm going to be very short. I'm a resident of Wicomico County, and I've come to a lot of these meetings and shared a lot of my concerns. And we talked about the scientific data, and I'm not sure if that goes anywhere after we talk about it. But I'm just going to ask, how many people in here have ancestors who farm? A a lot of us did. How many of us have ancestors who grew vegetables, watermelons, melons, beans, corn, that type of thing? How many of us have ancestors who used DDT on the farms? I know mine did. How many of us have ancestors who used slave labor on their farms? I know mine did. How many of us have ancestors who had farms with over 150,000 chickens locked in an enclosed building for their entire lifespan who never saw the light of day? Yeah, that's culture on the Eastern Shore. It's not culture on the Eastern Shore. It's not tradition. Okay, so my point is, the farming itself is not necessarily evil, not necessarily noble, not necessarily a good or bad thing. People have to eat, right? Yeah, people have to eat. But the way we conduct farming has to live up to certain standards. All right? Slavery was evil. If you don't believe that, look at your soul. DDT was poison. If you don't believe that, look at the science. Factory farming is toxic to communities. I'm sorry, but there is just too much medical evidence, too much scientific evidence about it. And we've turned in a hell of a lot of that from the county council. And if they're not reading it, they need to go back and look at it again. The way we do farming needs to change to protect our communities. And that's all I have to say.
Name is John Jacobs. We've had a John Jacobs speak. Is there another John Jacobs here this evening?
I hope not, but thank you.
Can we replace? Yeah. Go ahead.
He signed up for me because I was late. My name is Maria Payan.
Ms. Payan?
Yes.
The requirements are that if you're going to speak, it's required that you sign up.
I did sign up. I signed up and they said it was closed, which is why we signed up twice because I was going to be late. So he signed in for me and then I signed in.
The name here is John Jacobs.
There was two people who already did not speak, so I was speaking in place of one of the two that you called and did not speak. And I don't think there was a legal requirement anywhere, announced anywhere. This is a public hearing, correct?
Ms. Payan, we have procedures for the good of everyone that's in this room tonight. It's not for the abuse of the council.
It's not for abuse of the council. So I would like to speak in place of the two people who did not come up and spoke.
I clearly state that you cannot speak in the place of someone else. I'll grant you an exception. Excuse me, sir. I'll grant you an exception, but I think it's important that you recognize it.
Okay, thank you, and I do. I appreciate that. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinance. While we appreciate the work of the county to address the issues and feel this is better than what was in place, we do not feel the zoning ordinance addresses the concerns brought to you by the citizens of Wicomico. We would like to see ammonia scrubbers added to the zoning ordinance, and we still request a separate health ordinance be put in by Wicomico County, who does have the authority according to an analysis by the University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law. I will go over some of this, but I will submit this for the record because some of it was already stated. The Wicomico County Health Department, much to all of our surprise, did a health impact assessment, which further action is considered being taken. I found out about this only by accident when I was called into a community in Cecil County, Maryland. In an article were links to two PDFs. One was the Hopkins CLF letter. The other was the HIA that was done by Wicomico County Health Department. At first I thought it must be a typo or an error because a number of us had met with Wicomico County Health Department requesting a health impact assessment and air monitoring. We were told there was no funding. I emailed Lori Brewster to ask her if a health impact assessment was done. She told me yes, that it's on the website. I then asked if it was shared with any of the groups. Her response was not directly. This is very problematic on so many levels. An HIA process should be transparent and inclusive. There should be a plan to actively communicate the results of an HIA. The research questions developed by the health department to guide the assessment were narrow and restrictive. The recommendations do not accurately reflect or address the review and the findings of the assessment. Amazingly, this problematic health impact assessment is now being sent to other health departments and local governments in Maryland. and copies of the letter from other counties' health departments are being distributed referencing this problematic health impact assessment. Here's something that was distributed at the Cecil County meeting. I would like to reference page 15 of the HIA, though, because it does state in 2014, Wicomico County had a 69% higher rate of emergency department visits due to asthma per 10,000 population than the state of Maryland. That's alarming. DPI's voluntary best management practices for good neighbor relations suggest setbacks much less than what other poultry trade groups and or courts have ordered in litigation. For example, there's a PowerPoint 2006 Breeder Hatchery and Grow-Out Conference, an update on issues affecting poultry production on Delmarva, which credited the Bud Malone, Bill Satterfield, and others. It mentions a Georgia litigation case where the court ordered 300-foot setbacks and 1,100-foot restriction on poultry houses and waste structures from a dwelling. This was back in 2006, 10 years ago. In closing, I wonder why Tyson, Mount Air, Purdue, and other integrators agreed to much larger setbacks on April 1st, 2016 in North Carolina than here in Maryland. From the article, New Setbacks for Chicken Houses, okay, it states, new setback guidelines and standards for poultry houses and poultry waste treatment facilities approved by the North Carolina Poultry Federation Board of Directors, which is kind of like DPI here, went into effect April 1st. Bob Ford, Federation Executive Director, said all of the major poultry companies are members of the Federation and all agreed to the new guidelines and standards. These include Tyson Foods, Wayne Farms, Purdue Farms, Mount Air Farms, and others. Under the new guidelines and standards, chicken houses and other poultry production buildings won't be constructed within 1,000 feet of any occupied residence, within 1,500 feet of any public school, church, or accredited private school, or within 500 feet of any public business or established place of public assembly. Maybe DPI can address this, or maybe Tyson, Purdue, or Mount Air.
Hello, I was asked tonight on my way in if I would submit additional signatures for an existing petition, and I'll read it. Dear Wicomico County and County Executive, there are a number of known health effects from exposure to industrial scale poultry operations such as asthma, neurological impairments, and mental stress. To address these impacts, please place a moratorium on the expansion of existing poultry CAFOs and on sightings of the new industrial scale poultry houses close to residential areas, schools, playgrounds, churches, and health facilities until you can pass a protective local ordinance to address the public health impacts from industrial broiler production. And it's 29 more signatures.
Thank you very much.
I want to sign it. I want to sign it.
Okay.
That's the end of the list, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. That concludes the public hearing. Yes, sir.
I have something to say. My name wasn't called. I signed this.
If you'll come forward. If you'll come forward.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share. I'm Lewis Watson. I pastor First Baptist Church here in the city. I'm also the president of the Watchman with One Voice Ministerial Alliance. Before I register my concern, there are 3 questions that I would like to raise. Question number 1 is the agents who I understand are not from here, who are proposing to construct these CAFOs, have they considered another area outside of the residential area that they are proposing for these CAFOs to be built? Number 1. Number 2, has there been an approval from the EPA with a study that's been approved and provided to us to ensure our safety Number 3, what's in it for our county that we would embrace such crazy idea of having CAFOs built on federal land? Now, let me say this, I'm not against the poultry industry because I'm a preacher, I love chicken. But not to the point that we want to compromise our health. Now, I heard a gentleman say a few moments ago that he's been in this for some years and nothing's wrong with him. He doesn't know what's wrong with him because he don't know what's in his body right now that's ready to wake up and do him harm or take him out here, because none of us have ever seen tomorrow. Anytime there seems to be construction of this kind, or is considered to be a construction of this kind, that poses a possibility of degrading the property of our side of town, challenging health of individuals, traffic control that endangers the safety of our children, or even the improvement or not to improve the schools that our children attend. It always seems to come on our side of the town. And we have to come to all the time. To propose to present such a project over channeled water, wherein we have to drink. We don't know where the runoffs are, what's sinking into the ground. To me, is absolutely ludicrous. We have businesses on that side of town. We have 3 to 4 funeral homes on that side of town with trucks trafficking through there, convoys of trucks consistently trafficking through that vicinity, those streets, where we try to provide dignity to families, will not allow us to do so. We have a cemetery. My wife and I have worked very hard. For 30 years, we've been in business to improve our property at the business that we own. And to hear that property value is declining because some CAFOs that are going to be proposed by some people that don't even live here in our state, nor in our city, and this we have churches that have been erected, that have been built for the betterment of our community. We have a new school that we have just come before you not long ago to fight for. And here we are faced with this. People who are residents of that area, flooding. We have a high rating of cancer on this eastern shore. People with bronchitis and asthma. We don't know what films are being emitted from those trucks. I would ask you and thank you that you who we have elected to fight for us, to fight for our safety, that you would reconsider these people being there.
The names Maria Payan, Kathy Camarada, and Reverend Watson were on the page that was left over there. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the public hearing for tonight. I would very much like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, taking the time to come out tonight and express your concerns. We certainly will take this into consideration. We will have our September 6th meeting when we will most likely take a vote on this bill, just for your information. Again, we do appreciate you coming out. I would ask you to please drive home safely. And that would conclude our public hearing. Council, I entertain that motion. Favor?
person.
So I
John
hope I didn't
Jacobs.
get in trouble on the fight.
No, don't worry about it.
I mean, I don't have anything public on there about that. These people, 2-hour meeting room tell people they can't speak an hour into it. Really?
I know.
I had my boss when I was like, Danny, they're trying to tell me I can't speak.
Well, you were very articulate, very persuasive. So. I agree. Yeah.
It's the same immigrant. What's the difference between North Carolina and Maryland?
I was interested in one woman's comments. Well, this is Kimber Belkey, an associate with us. Well, what I was wondering is, handing the camera right here, but she said there was an air monitoring requirement here, so that there was a study that was validating air monitoring.
I'm glad you guys were running your mouth about the time. They never announced that anywhere outside.
No, and I was on the phone with my boss. I was like, look at the thing. Is there some kind of
Posted it, they walked in the door.
Yeah.
And then,
again, trying to shut everybody up.
then at 6 o'clock, they took the paper away. When they announced that, John said, no, if anybody in this room wants to sign up, you can have the chance. Right? I ran up and put his name on it real quick. I wasn't sure who else had. I knew he was running late. But, like I say, it should have been just like a county council meeting. Anybody in here just
and that's why I was telling Kimber, look, don't try a million miles per hour to let everybody speak. But MDE did that.
It'd be one thing if they announced that they were having this meeting tonight, a week ago, advertised it.
Yeah. Well, you had with all the different CAFOs. I'm really not sure what next steps are.
He went in with the next step. He told John Cannon we're calling it.
I think that's the Sierra Club stuff. Whoop. I don't want to run over it. I'm not going to trip over it. Okay. Sorry, still on edge.
Charles said he hadn't heard much about it for several weeks. She's gone underground. I might need to after that.
I even Murray must all be writing all of the things that happened today, and I will go around and ask people if they
put them in a different position.
Because they were like, oh, we got the approval for it. It's like, okay, when was that? Oh, in April.
But a few weeks ago, when we found out that
Right.
it existed at all.
Right. That's what I said. I said, please explain this. Like, oh, well, we had no idea it went out publicly. It's news to us. I was like, and I'm like, well, it's not. I'm like, I don't know anything. So I will be writing everyone in the details of that. Whenever I get a few hours to sit there and be like, how do I make this sound nice? So make it sound nice.
And you still driving over to the park every day?
Yeah.
We were down at Chincoteague and went out to the beach 2 weeks ago.
I'll have to look over there. I haven't been over
Oh,
there.
that beach is, the city picture is moving north. If they could just get the people to follow it up north. It's a controversial thing.
Yeah, because when I went...
I think it's for the birds. It's a wildlife sanctuary.
Yeah, but it's not for the people.
Offered to